Everyone, and welcome to the November 15th Revere School Committee meeting. Please rise and salute the flag. Roll call the members.
Mr. Stacy Bronson Rizzo,
Present.
Mr. Michael Ferranti,
Here.
Miss Susan Gravellisi, Mr. John Kingston,
Here.
Mrs. Aisha Milbury Ellis,
Present.
Miss Carol Ty,
Here.
Mayor Brian Arrigo.
Here. We'll begin tonight's meeting with recognition. Mr. Kingston.
In recognition of the RHS volleyball team going 20-0 this year, I would like to recognize them at our next regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you.
Great idea. Thank you, Mr. Kingston. We'll move on to the consent calendar.
Motion to accept the consent calendar.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to take one item off and add it to the Ways and Means Subcommittee report with the carry forward from this year to next year, the budgetary wish list and the staff appreciation. I can
Okay.
add it to the report.
So we'll take up the consent calendar for a roll call without the carry forward item. The carry forward item will be on the Ways and Means.
Yes.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Stacy Bronson Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. Michael Ferranti,
Yes.
Miss Susan Gravellisi, Mr. John Kingston,
Yes.
Mrs. Aisha Milbury Ellis,
Yes.
Miss Carol Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Arrigo.
Yes. Okay. We'll move on to the student representative report.
One second while I figure out how to share this.
Thank you. Will you be putting it up on the board? Oh, there I am.
And then Paul will go back and forth between you and the presentation.
Okay, so there we go. Yes, good evening. I'm the representative Elni, and here's the other student representative Raihan. Today, we're going to be focusing on the school updates, school improvement, and advisory board. Usually, I tend to do a representation of like 30 slides, but I've been advised to keep it shorter. So our main focus today will be about the school improvement and advisory board, since that's been something new that we've been trying to figure out. And so therefore, the school updates will be a little bit shorter than usual. So to start off,
A quick updates before we start off. Again, our fall sports teams have done incredible work winning their games. The Drama Club is hosting auditions for our first musical in the Heights, and a big congratulations to our cheer team for winning their JBLs. One aspect of our school improvement plan is creating a vision of the graduates. There is a working group made up of students, educators, and families discussing the purpose of school and how we can best prepare the students at RHS to achieve their identified objectives. The group has met 3 times so far, and we have discussed themes and ideas that we want to focus on that RHS students can want to see as they go on with their futures. And the vision of the graduate team is also looking for new ways to connect to members of the community. And so if you have any suggestions, please contact Ms. Goldman.
okay, so this past month with the School Improvement Council, Mr. Bourne explained how the SIP, standing for School Improvement Plan, was taking shape and shared the list of items being considered up there. You guys can look at it for a moment. It just talks about increasing gender and racial diversity of staff, providing training, learning experiences on anti-racism, creating and adopting equitable practices, and so forth. On the next slide here, we talk about electives. So it began by, I was there, I suggested incorporating more electives because usually we communicate about multiple ways in which we can show the diversification of students through staff, but why don't we show that through the courses that we learned as well? So others began to support the idea of including more relevant electives such as like regional history courses and the like. Mr. Bourne agreed with our statements, and since then there has been a form created and sent out to students so they can share their opinions and hopefully create a group where students are able to offer their perspectives and therefore be applied accordingly. There has also been a talk on the possibilities of students and faculty visiting other schools to see alternative schedules, since there has been like varying opinions on the current schedule that we have now. In our student advisory board, so the student advisory board, we had not have that for a very long time, right? So just getting it back on its wheels, we don't really know what it was or how it works. So our first objective was to like kind of find out what is an advisory board and what's the definition within the context of RHS. So our objective so far is that we'll share the work of various groups with each other so that we can assist and promote their work to the student body and administration. We want to build internal network of student leaders. So there's the student senate and there's different affinity groups within our schools. A lot of us work towards the same objective, yet we tend to work separately and not rely onto each other. So I wanted to kind of create like a liaison or like internal community where we're able to share and trade information and support each other rather than looking for it separately. That way less time is wasted. Besides that, we want to provide advice, guidance, and knowledge to those in the school community and informally connect with school community. Rather, when we think of like connecting with the student body, we think of like we're sending emails and forms, right? But those are only targeting the active students who want to look at those emails and want to actually participate. But we have to adhere to those students who just want to go to school and go home. How are we going to get them to participate? That's by adhering to the public informal ways. So that could be like writing questions on the board, the school board, that everybody passes on the hallways. With all the pandemic and TikTok stuff, our attention span has gotten very short. So by seeing something on a board in a public space repetitively will get them interested. Our members include myself, Alnida Jesus, Raiham Ahmad, Santiago Jill, and Nicole Del Silva.
Some of the ideas that the advisory board has been talking about, again, was to hold focus groups to better understand the diverse experiences of the student body at RHS. We have been investigating some areas which we think will benefit the school, such as translation services, the vaping issues, the budget allocation, engaging inactive students, as Elni just mentioned, the diversity of faculty, which I believe also came in the school improvement meetings, and the diversity of electives or the options of different electives. Our plan is to collaborate with different school districts and also nonprofit organizations to help provide resolutions to the issues that were just mentioned.
And so that's everything for now. We focused on keeping it short, but since the Student Advisory Board has just commenced and we're starting to build connections with these other groups, in the next school committee meeting, you'll probably see the progress of that, and we're just getting started. So for today, short, but expect more. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for the update. Any members have any questions or comments? Mrs. Rizzo?
I just want to say welcome back, Elni and Rayhan. It's a pleasure to have you here. And with Chris Bowen at the helm, I'm sure there's going to be wonderful things happening within your group, within the school, and I look forward to seeing everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. Miss Milbury Ellis.
Sure, I just wanted to welcome you back as well. And, you kids are so much smarter than we were when we were in school. I am so impressed by the depth of your appreciation for seeing the whole picture and the fact that you're looking out for those students that can kind of go astray. You're doing meaningful work, so I wish you all the luck with this advisory board. It's really impressive stuff, so good luck.
Okay. We'll move on now to the public speak portion of tonight's meeting. Dr. Kelly, do we have anyone on Zoom? If there is anyone online, please use the raise hand function.
At this time, there is nobody in the webinar with a raised hand.
Okay. All right. We will move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The superintendent's report tonight is highly focused on our school improvement plans. And as we have done in the past, the principals have worked together with their school improvement councils to develop plans that align with the district improvement plan, but also represent the unique needs of the teachers and students in the school that they oversee, that they are in charge of. So we actually have 3 presentations tonight. One is by our elementary principals who worked together to make sure there was cohesion among their plans, followed by a presentation from our middle school principals who again worked together in a small group to make sure there was cohesion across their schools, and finally our high school principals who worked together to make sure there is cohesion in the plans for their 2 schools. And so at this time I'll invite up our elementary principals to begin in whatever order or fashion you have arranged for yourselves.
Sarah will come up after you, and then I'll come up after Sarah, so that we're not all on top of each other.
I just need 1 second to find this presentation. Of course, that's not- Go.
All right. Good evening. My name is Percy Napier. I'm principal of the Garfield Elementary School. And I'm going to start off our presentation on the school improvement plans this year. So as you know, we have worked together as a district and also as individual schools to create a school improvement plan that is aligned to the district improvement plan. So the vast majority of the initiatives and the work that is reflected in the school improvement plan is directly tied to the district improvement plan. So we further sought to differentiate the work on the plan based on individual school needs. And so what I will be talking about and what we will be talking about is how those objectives align to the district plan, and also highlighting some specific things that are being done on a school level basis. So the first is the strategic initiative 1.1. This is related to improving the racial diversity of staff members. So the main overarching goal from the district is increasing the diversity of staff that reflects the racial and ethnic makeup and linguistic diversity of our students, increasing partnerships between the Revere Public Schools and colleges, and also identifying and supporting internal community candidates in the pursuit of educator credentials. In this particular objective, this is kind of an objective that's kind of dealt with more on a district-wide basis, in addition to the individual work that we do at our schools. So we don't have any specific things to add from a school-wide level as it relates to this particular objective. So my colleagues now will talk about some of the others and also explain more of the school-specific plans. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Napier.
Sarah Holmes Tracy. I'm the principal over at the Lincoln Elementary School. I want to talk to you about Strategic Initiative 2.1. It's about the training and professional development and learning experiences related to anti-racism, restorative practices, and equity for all. The Beachmont is currently implementing monthly school-wide equity-focused lessons that build community and empathy across all classrooms, and they're measured by school climate surveys. The Garfield Equity Team continues to facilitate professional learning opportunities that further teacher understanding of bias and culturally responsive practices. Over at the Hill, they're having community building groups run at principal meetings that are focused on building relationships between and amongst staff. At the Lincoln, we're excited to continue using the Equity Pause to review any material and lessons and assess and ensure that when we're sourcing supplemental materials, we're looking out for any kind of implicit or explicit bias. Paul Revere is using their Student Incentives Committee to participate in a book club to read the Little Book of Restorative Justice, and they will use that to determine the committee's next steps for school-wide policy related to SEL and student incentives. Over at the Wayland, they're working to establish a consistent PD program for paraprofessionals that offer monthly PD. They're going to deliver it by building, and it's going to be delivered by building and district colleagues for all Wayland paraprofessionals, and it's going to include opportunities to identify, implement, and reflect on our cultural competency practices. Over at the,
Thank you, Mrs. Humas Tracy.
I'm Melissa Lomas. I'm the principal over at the Hills School. I'll be presenting on Initiative 3.1, which is focused on creating, adopting, and applying equitable practices across our district. The big focus for all of our schools was to make sure that we are still reaffirming and aligning our school-based equity teams, and that we are implementing identified priority areas that the Equity Advisory Board shares with us. So at the individual school level, at the Beachmont and at my school, our equity teams, the Beachmont for Bees, and ours is the Hill School Pause Committee, will continue to guide our school-wide expectations, and at the Beachmont, they'll also continue to guide school-wide expectations and proactive supports when expectations are not met. At the Garfield, they are implementing a co-teaching model for ESL instruction. And at the Lincoln School's ROARS and Restorative Practices Plan continues to guide their school-wide expectations and responses. At the Paul Revere, all staff are participating in a book club, and they're reading The Innocent Classroom by Alexis Pate. Reflective activities will be completed and discussed through the reading to ensure application of new learning. And at the Wayland, Principal Pelletier is offering a Duolingo challenge, which I am secretly swiping with pride for next year, for staff who are interested in exploring another language to build their capacity to support students and families for whom English is not their primary language. And thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lomas.
Hi, I'm Chris Fries, and I'm the principal of the Beachmont, and I'm going to be talking about Objective 3.2, which is creating opportunities for parent engagement and input in school and district decision-making. Really, it's, in a nutshell, it's just trying to engage parents in a variety of different ways and making sure that their voices are heard and bringing the community to the table as well as we start to make decisions on what's happening in school. So on the next slide, you'll see a number of parent coffees or opportunities to participate in the PTO and School Improvement Council. We're all trying to do that on a monthly basis, so that's happening at the Beachmont and the Hill. For students or for parents to ask questions and community members to ask questions and share ideas. Same thing over at the Lincoln, coffee and conversations meetings. And then at the Paul Revere, they're implementing a newsletter using S'more. I think a lot of us are using that S'more. It's accessible in a variety of different languages and has been a great resource to have. So a lot of newsletters, and at the Wayland, trying to get feedback from families to be incorporated in the work that they're doing as they reimagine those Wayland core values. And a quick plug, if there are any Beachmont parents out there, we have our Beachmont Parent Coffee on Thursday at 8:45.
Thank you, Mr. Friesen.
Good evening, everyone. Mo Coyle, principal at the Paul Revere School. I am presenting on Objective 5.2. 5.2 has to do, it's actually the fun one, right? Increasing opportunity for students to have voice and choice in their academic programming. And with this objective, we are looking to examine current policies and gather baseline data for student voice and choice in academic programs at excuse me, different grade levels in schools, and then also creating opportunities for students to provide feedback on current and desired academic programs. So at the Garfield Elementary School, they're promoting the implementation of choice boards to provide students with choice and voice and support teachers with resources, training, and information to help integrate the strategy into their planning. At the Lincoln School, they're developing a process for student council formation and a student newspaper. At the Paul Revere, we are working to survey the students to identify satisfaction and interest level with the available literature that's part of the CCC individualized daily reading library. So all of the classrooms have been outfitted with libraries of 250 or more books that are culturally responsive and really interesting for the kids. It's been exciting to be in the classrooms and see how much they're talking about the reading unsolicited with one another. We wanted to try to build on this by identifying what are the students also reading outside of school, what are their interests, and seeing even if there's different parts of the library that are really a big hit for the kids, maybe we can add additional copies of those titles to classrooms to improve access for all the students. So we'll be working on that throughout the year. And then at the Wayland School, they're going to continue to move away from the static student council and toward the broader fifth grade leadership model that invites more participation, offers more access and opportunities for Wayland fifth grade students to affect change in their school and community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle. Sorry.
I'm Andre Pelletier, principal at Wayland. Good to see everybody again. And I am talking a little bit about Objective 6.4, which is really about deeper learning. I know that's a conversation that's not new to the district, but it's an important one for us to continue thinking about. And essentially, not necessarily in this order, but what this is about is moving towards a more cohesive shared vision of what deeper learning is. The way I'm looking at it at our school is sort of coming up with a definition that works for our school so that everybody can be on the same page. Thinking about what that looks like in classrooms, both in big ways and small ways, and then thinking about how we assess that and what role it plays in the grading process, which I know is something that's happening at the district level. So these are the things that all of us are working on. At our separate schools, there are some additional steps that people are taking. And so you can see from here that some of this is about really focusing on experiences that students are having. So at Garfield, really thinking about the in-depth science projects that are happening in classrooms as a context for deeper learning. Hill is talking about establishing a team to sort of explore the idea of deeper learning within the school, and I think again hit some of those earlier bullet points, but as a school community. A similar approach at Lincoln. Paul Revere, really interesting idea here to really hold a school specific showcase of the deeper learning experiences that teachers and kids are working towards, which I think is really interesting. It'd be cool to see how that goes, Mo. And that is how we're working towards 6.4. Thank you. Oh, and that's it, right? That's the whole thing. So.
Thank you, Mr. Pelletier, and all of the elementary principals. I don't know if there's any questions before we move on.
Any members have any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on.
So up next, we have our middle school principals who are going to share with us the work that they've prepared.
Mrs. Rizzo.
Dr. Kelly, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to accept the elementary school improvement plans as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Stacy
Yes.
Rizzo. Mr. Michael Franzi.
Yes.
Miss Susan Gravellisi.
Absent.
Mr. John Kingston.
Yes.
Mrs. Aisha Millery Ellis.
Yes.
Miss Carol Ty.
Yes.
Mayor Brian O'Reilly.
Yes.
So good evening, school committee members. I'd like to thank you for inviting all the principals in today to share their school improvement plans for the 2022-2023 school year. I'm Steve Paczynski, the principal of the Garfield Middle School. Along with me is Mrs. Willett, who is the principal of Susan B. Anthony, and Mrs. Heather Bobb, who is the principal of the Rumney Marsh Academy. So before jumping in and speaking to some of the specifics, what we wanted to do is share the process that we all engaged in when developing our school improvement plans. So as Dr. Napier explained earlier, there's a lot of cohesion between the three schools and working together, and that it's aligned with the district improvement plan. So after reviewing the district improvement plan, the three middle school principals collaborated with our administrative teams and together to brainstorm some ways in which the district initiatives could be implemented at our buildings. We would then develop drafts, building-based drafts with our own administrative teams, which are then shared with our school improvement committees, instructional leadership teams, equity team. There we go, thank you. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were reading my mind. Those drafts were then revised and changed, and then those were submitted for tonight for approval. So the way we organized our presentation this evening was by the three major objectives of the district improvement plan, which is developing and building an anti-racist community and environment, social emotional health and learning of our students, and meeting the needs of all of our students. So beginning with building an anti-racist community, we are all committed to establishing and creating and maintaining a community that's inclusive and supports all of our students. And a number of ways that we do this between all of our schools is that we have our school-based equity coordinator, as well as school-based equity teams, which have members of the administration, teachers, as well as students. This year, we also have a middle school restorative justice coach. It's actually our second year in a row, but this year is with Miss Linda Barber, who works with the three schools, our restorative justice coach, teacher, as well as our professional growth team leaders to calibrate the restorative practices that are taking place within our three buildings, as well as to move us into a tier 2 practices, which includes harm circles. So last year we were really focused on the tier 1, which is community building. We're now further committed into rolling that into our building to moving into the tier 2 and restorative practices. On top of this, we also have the district document of cultural responsive instructional look-fors, which has been shared with teachers and administrators, so that when we do classroom observations, that we're providing feedback and teachers understand what we're looking for in student impact as well. Continuing on building an anti-racist community in initiatives 3.1 and 2, ways that we're integrating that and ingraining it within our school culture and community is certainly through professional growth time and with our PGT leaders. This is a time when professional development is able to be implemented and given during the PGT time for our teachers. It's a time for them to collaborate on assessments and to develop and to, again, assess the assessments for equity and inclusive. Parents are also invited to communicate their ideas and perspectives through parent surveys. And we are hoping, and it's something that we always need to do, is to increase that parent involvement on our committees, being the PTO, the School Improvement Committee, instructional leadership teams, or other things. Ways that we're hoping to do that is one is with utilizing family liaisons. We also have our onboarding programs, or when students enter mid-year, that they're greeted with our family liaisons, counselors, and provided materials, as well as how they can access the school webpage, website, social media. Also, as I know a principal spoke earlier about SMORE, that we're utilizing that for monthly newsletters. And on top of that, we're collaborating with community organizations that have historically served underserved populations. Massiere is one that was at our parent-teacher nights last week, and this was to assist families with getting internet connections, and we've also spoken with members of the Elks on ways that they can contribute and assist us in our programs. And at this point, I will turn it over to Mrs. Bobb.
font is a little small from here. I'm Mrs. Bob. I'm the principal across the lot here at the Rumney. Thank you for that scaffold. One of the things that we've been talking about sort of in a roundtable way as a team is addressing the social and emotional health of students, staff, and community, and to not do that in isolation, to make that a part of our regular classroom practice and school community. So these are some of the things that we have been doing aligned with the authentic learning experiences. I think one of the takeaways for us about deeper learning is that it does go deep, and that we really need to have a handle on who our students are and what they need as individual people, and teach to the whole child. So our lens on social and emotional health is throughout the building, throughout the day, and in the activities that the students are engaging in the classrooms. So student surveys in terms of which elective classes might be interesting to them, what really makes them want to be in school. The instructional leadership team through the deeper learning process in teams in creating units of study that meet the needs of the students that we are teaching. We have student government representatives on our school improvement councils, opportunities for more performance-based tasks in the classroom, deeper learning protocols during our PGT meetings, so that we're doing things such as equity pauses to take a look at the materials that we're using and make sure that we're aligning the work the students are doing with our values, missions, and visions as schools and as a district. Providing ongoing professional development in developing assessments that are effective and equitable, and where students can find success. And continuing the work of UDL, which goes hand in hand with deeper learning, to provide students with alternate ways to demonstrate mastery on a particular skill in the content areas. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Willett.
Thank you. And I'll be speaking about meeting the needs of all students with the strategic objective, establish cultures, structures, and policies that support the growth of all students without bias. And to address that, we collaborate about our instructional leadership teams. We all have one, and that is our primary mechanism for implementing distributive leadership within our schools. It really is a tool that we can use to give teachers voice and work in collaboration with decision-making instruction, and it really helps to ensure that our district vision is implemented equitably. We also are going to be looking to refine and review our master schedules to increase student voice and choice. As Ms. Bob mentioned, we want to make sure that students have some voice and choice in their academic and enrichment offerings, and making sure that our building schedules reflect that. We provide ongoing PD and PGTs to ensure the district's vision is implemented equitably across disciplines, and we're utilizing, and here we're going to be addressing deeper learning, and we're going to be creating or establishing a shared vision of, or a shared understanding of the definition of what deeper learning means, and having that further the work being done at the district level at our own building. So each building will be developing their own deeper learning team to further that work. We're doing things like shadowing students to get a real understanding of what it's like to be a student in the classroom, and to also further the understanding of student sense of belonging, and to really get a sense of the experience of a student so that we can help improve instruction. And I think that is it.
Thank you all very much. That was great.
Mrs. Rizzo?
Just out of curiosity, have you started the SMORE newsletters? And if so, have they been helpful with the communication piece? Yeah? Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
If no one else has any questions, I make a motion to accept the school improvement plans for middle school.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Rizzo, seconded by Ms. Franzi. Roll call.
Mrs. Stacy Bronzo Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. Michael Franzi,
Yes.
Miss Susan Gravellisi, Mr. John Kingston,
Yes.
Mrs. Aisha Milbury Ellis,
Yes.
Miss Carol Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Arrigo.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Last but absolutely not least, our high school principals will present on their school improvement plans. Although, why is this not letting me share? Hold on. There we go.
Hi, thank you. I'm Chris Bowen. I'm the principal at Revere High School. I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Stacy Mulligan, who is the principal at City Lab Innovation High School and Revere. And I think one of the exciting things about our process in designing our plans is how much Stacy and I have been working together. I'd say probably meeting weekly, if not more than once a week since the beginning of the year. We're both kind of in similar positions, with Stacy creating this new school from the ground up, and me kind of in a spot where I'm working with a new leadership team at the high school, and I'm deeply inspired by the work she's doing and very excited about hearing what she's doing over there and how what I'm thinking of doing here and how we can work together for the kids in Revere. So just want to give a nod to the work she's doing because it's been very inspiring to me.
Good evening, school committee. So the first strategic initiative was increasing gender and racial diversity of staff, particularly among teachers and administrators. Chris and I had a discussion about this many times throughout the summer and beginning of the school year. As Dr. Napier said in his opening, a lot of this happens at the district level, but a lot of it also happens at the school level. There's many reasons that we've struggled to find candidates of color. Over the last few years with COVID, it's made it even harder. The pool is smaller. People aren't working the same. The burnout from teaching. There's lots of reasons. We have talked about not losing, finding the best teacher. We don't want to get caught just trying to fill our schools up with just black and brown. We want the best teachers for the best kids. So we've really thought about how we're going to prioritize that moving forward, making sure we have the best candidates for our kids. Chris has talked about how he was able to hire, I think he said about 8 new staff members. I was able to hire 2 staff members. But with that, we've tried to figure out ways where we can still bring in diversity, even if we can't do it through our faculty and staff. Some of the partnerships that I've created, I'm going to get into it more when we talk about the other strategic initiatives, but we have lots of partners that are coming in, and those partners have been women of color, men of color. One of the days of the week is exploratory, and those partners have really been a great asset, especially to our young boys. The partnerships, I know Chris had talked about Latino educators or Latinos for educators, and Latinos for Education. That's been a great resource, but this is always going to be a challenge. It's not something that we're going to give up on. It's not, and a lot of it is not just bringing the staff in, it's maintaining. And how are we retaining these people that we do find? So there are lots of challenges, but we continue to work at it. And what's most important, like I said, is just finding the best candidates.
We also wanted to name that when we're thinking about retaining educators of color that we hire, we need to approach that from the perspective of school culture. And we need to be thinking about, do we have a culture in the building, in the school, that is welcoming, that is inclusive, that is supportive of folks who have different life experiences than we do, than I do, hiring them. And if we're not asking these questions about school culture and the environment that they're teaching in, we're not doing justice to the kids we're serving or the people that we're hiring. So that's also part of our conversation here.
So the next strategic initiative was create opportunities for parent engagement and input in school and district decision-making. Like Chris said, this is different for us. Well, it's definitely different for me. Making the transition from Seacoast to City Lab has been huge, seeing how many parents are really here for us and showing up. I mean, everybody's showing up, the community, people are excited right now, and I don't want to lose that as the years go on. It's so nice to have tons of parents at events every month. Chris and I have talked about one thing that we're both doing as our school improvement council and my governing board is having family members sit on it. I have family members. I have Dimple is sitting on it as well from YouthWorks, and that's been a great resource. Our students are sitting on it, so it's been a big change for us just having a governing board and having so much involvement from the community. Also, another thing that we've done together is the transfer process. In the past, the way I received kids, I get a phone call, it's coming to Seacoast. And that no longer exists anymore. Kids don't get sent out from the high school. We have an application process, so we get to meet every single parent, every single student. So no kid is able to come over unless I've met your parent and you in the process. It's been great for Chris and I because we're not dealing with frustration, because that's how we were receiving kids in the past. So that doesn't even exist anymore. But there are going to be some cases where kids want to come to the high school, and there are going to be some kids that want to come to me from the high school. So we've decided that, we're not doing it throughout the year. Mid-year, at the change of the semester, since we left trimesters and went back to semesters, is when we'll review if a kid is the right fit for me and it's the right fit for the high school. We've had some conversations too later down the line about making it more equitable, as far as making sure that there's classes that we can offer on both sides, so there's none of that feeling where kids don't feel like there's no choice on, they have to choose one or the other. So I think that's been great as far as family involvement, because families finally feel like they have a voice in this. I can't tell you how many meetings I had at Seacoast, lots of tears. Lots of families feeling like I didn't have a choice. They just told me I had to show up today, and that's devastating as a parent, with your child being thrown out of school and not having a choice about it. So I'm very hopeful that this will continue and move on.
Some of the specific things we're doing at Revere High School in this area that has been a lot of fun, actually, is a series of community listening sessions that myself, Caitlin, our deputy principal, and our family liaisons hosted and are continuing to host from the beginning of the year to listen to families, listen to what their needs are, listen to what they want school to be. And those culminated in the fourth session in October, where we actually got to share with families some of the student voice work around the vision of the graduate, and got to bring to families, this is what your students are saying they want school to be, and how can we start to work together to plan that for them. Those highlighted a need from families to say, there's a lot of struggles sometimes that come with raising adolescents, and how can we work with families as a school to bring them together with resources in the community. So we are starting to plan a series of what we're calling sort of adolescent development community sessions with some community partners, where we're going to take vaping as the first topic, which is something I think on everyone's mind, both us as educators and family members, to help families understand what these struggles are, why students are making these choices, and what we can do as a community, because it's not just a family problem or a school problem, it's a community issue, it's a public health issue across the country, and we need to engage folks with this so they can bring together. So other topics will be around other forms of substance use, mental health concerns, that kind of stuff. So this sort of like series of family workshops, as well as the newsletters. I think SMORE has been useful for everyone across the district, so we're doing those weekly and trying to highlight what are some of the opportunities and upcoming events and important information that families say. There's really a lot of things going on at the school. We just don't always know about them. So how can we try to, with enough notice to know, there's this FAFSA workshop for financial aid. I would have made my kid go to it if I knew it happened. So how do we do a better job highlighting those things with advance notice, so that all of the cool things that are happening here, people know about, and they can get their kids to show up, or they can show up themselves if they want. The other priority area we wanted to focus on is this idea around giving kids voice and choice in their program. And so two things that we're thinking about implementing are the way restorative practices show up in the classroom, the way that way of thinking helps teachers and kids make better choices about what they want to learn, and expanding our elective and internship opportunities, something that we're doing at both schools.
Well, City Lab was created basically to change the idea of students not having a voice. It was formerly the alternative school where kids didn't have a choice of coming. The main objective was just that piece of paper. Just get in the diploma, get them out, get them out. So in the redesign process, we really thought about, because we're small enough, I can only house up to 120 kids. So we have the capability to actually listen to kids and give them, what do you want to do? What's your pathway? I know that would be more difficult in the high school, but it's a unique little gift that I have, and I'm going to capitalize on it. So every student gets a choice in what they want to do. As freshmen, my kids will just have an experience similar to a vocation experience, where one day a week they just get kind of cycled through all different vocations in STEAM. So my kids' first quarter did one in wearable tech, engineering, artists for humanity, game design, behavioral health. So now that it's quarter two, they're rotating again into some other vocations. It's been great. I've had a lot of support from the city. Things to come in the spring, we'll have a first responder pathway where the Revere Police, the Revere Fire, and Cataldo are all doing exploratory with my kids for 10 weeks. It'll end in Chelsea Courthouse with them basically solving a crime from start to finish and having all those players be involved. Patrick Keefe, I hope I'm saying his name right, he has volunteered to support us with our culinary pathway. So my kids are going to do 10 weeks experiencing all these different chefs from Legal Seafood down in Legal Test Kitchen in South Boston. So this is just 9th grade, so they just get to see what's out there and what they could see, what they could be if they wanted to. As the kids move throughout City Lab, sophomore year, our plan is to have every student dual enrolled, so they begin the dual enrollment path. So the way we've structured our schedule, the morning is all academics and the afternoon is really up to them, what they want to do. I think the best thing about the redesign is the kids are the easiest part of it. They have totally adapted to the model. They're jumping on the train at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and they're gone, and they are not complaining. They're all over the city of Boston. They're all over the city of Cambridge, and they're having these amazing experiences. And to think that these were kids months ago that were getting ready to drop out of high school, that are fully in architecture studios, computer science studios, engineering studios, taking college level algebra, and they just needed to be out of the four walls. So the model's working so far. It's not perfect, but after one quarter, it seems like we've done the right thing. Junior year, our hope is that every kid is done with their core requirements. So junior year, they're basically able to take college classes, be in industry, and just enjoy the experience, apprentice, intern, and there is still the option for a year 13 for those kids that are like, I maybe want college, I maybe want a career, I'm not sure. That year 13 could be a paid internship. So there's the sky is the limit right now. So it's really exciting that the kids are excited, they want to be there, and I feel like giving them a choice of how they wanted to do school is working, and I'm looking forward to how the school year goes with them.
I'll be quick, but on the theme of giving kids a choice of how they want to do school, one of the things we're really trying to dig into at the high school this year is talking with kids about what they want school to be. Not just big picture, but also what do they want to learn, and how do we kind of revisit some of the electives we offer? How do we think about in 1 to 5 years what we want the instructional program to be, and how do we listen to students and what they want? And so there's some different committees digging into that in some good ways. We're looking to expand our fine and performing arts at the high school. schedule in the Heights is an exciting thing that we're looking forward to, as well as looking at the elective classes and how we can kind of change some of that up. We brought back a student senate that is really geared towards being an advisory board to my leadership team. That had our first big meeting, I'd say about 3 weeks ago, and they kind of broke up into different committees. We're very excited about that work. We also have a grant that we got from the Department of Education to focus on what it means to create safe and supportive schools. And we're getting a group of family and teachers and students together to really dig into that. And we see the connections between that equity work as being very deeply connected to what happens in classrooms. Like, we can't separate school culture and equity and restorative practices and instruction as different things. We need to be merging those together. And so we're kind of intentionally highlighting that school culture work in this part about the academic program because we see it as connected, and we're trying to get students to see that as connected as well. In the last one that we've chosen to highlight around our focus on effective, student-centered, and deeper learning experiences, we are working with our instructional coaches and our teachers and in our professional growth time to really be thinking about our culturally responsive look-fors, thinking about how we implement some of these practices and how we get talking about instruction. We've been really thinking about ways we can try to highlight student work, both at building level opportunities as well as district opportunities that will come up.
Yeah, so we have changed the way like I said, the schedule is a lot different. So the morning is dedicated to academics, and then the afternoon is either traveling or with electives in the building. So this one day a week, we do a lot of interdisciplinary unit planning. This was a huge change, and people were excited about it during the whole redesign process. And then when it was time, it was like, we're not ready. So we needed to get some help from some outside partners to really get this work done. We have a female minority-owned group of educators that have done redesigns many times in the city of Boston. They come on Wednesdays and they work with our educators to really look at culturally responsive planning, project-based learning, and it's been great. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, September was bumpy. It's bumpy anyway, but it's bumpy when you're in a brand new school asking people to do things that they've never done before. But I really wanted this interdisciplinary to be the highlight of our school, because that's really what we want. We want the kids having these hands-on, deeper learning experiences every day, if not every week. And I hope you guys come on December 1st because you'll really see some of it in action. But I have to shout out my math team, who has been amazing. And they were the most nervous. It's always those. They needed to plan and they needed the details. And I was like, just do it. You know, you can figure it out. And they did it. So they are doing amazing things. And the kids, I've never seen my students be disappointed to not be in the classroom. They've really been like, I just want to get to the hands-on part, you know. So my kids are building these amazing structures and launching pumpkins across the back of the Beachmont, and it's nice. So this IDU time has been great, and having these partners come in from the outside who are embedding cultural competency into everything. And like Chris said, it shouldn't be like a side thing. It's just, I feel like all of us are just making it part of what we do, and it's trickling down. This is my 3rd year in the district, and it was just starting. So the more we do it, it just becomes what we do, and it's very intentional, but I don't feel like anybody's pushing back, like we're back on this again. It really feels like this is what we do, and I want to figure out how to do it better. So it's been great. I really feel like the kids are having the experiences that we wanted, and yeah.
At the high school, one of the things that we're really excited about is the opportunity we had based on a grant that we got through the Department of Education called Rethinking Grading Practices. And it has been very exciting for us to take some of these big picture ideas, like what does interdisciplinary work look like? And then think about, okay, if that's the direction we're going, how do we report that on a transcript? That looks different in the future than it does currently. And it's exciting to sort of have the backing of the Department of Education, as well as the Department of Higher Ed, which is kind of involved in this as well, to help us think through in a cohort of, we are one of 5 districts, there are 5 high schools that are working to move grading practices forward, to be able to report these things differently in a way that they more authentically report the kind of learning we're experiencing. And it's been an exciting partnership to have these 5 schools that are doing all this different stuff across the state, as well as the Associate Commissioner from Department of Education saying this is where we want to go as a state, and these are districts that are leading the way in this, as well as to have that partnership with Department of Higher Ed to be talking about how does that impact college admissions, what does that look like for transcripts, and how do we start to kind of move that work forward at all different levels. And so that's a 2-year grant that we're involved in, and we're just very excited about the work that's happening there to kind of take some of the stuff Stacy's talking about and help the district learn how do we kind of package that up in terms of grading, in terms of what's reported out and all of that. So that's a thing I want to highlight, that the work we're doing is excited. We're excited for it. That's it.
Great, thank you. Any members have any questions or comments? Mrs. Rizzo?
Just, amazing job by everyone here and a lot of time and effort put into it. I think the one thing, you had great work. What makes me so happy is the collaboration between the 2 schools, which is something I really haven't seen as much. I haven't seen it. And it just makes me so happy to see it. Our elementary and our middle schools have always worked together. And I'm not saying they haven't worked together at the high school or Seacoast, but it just looks more effortless, let me say, that you can do this. And it's just going to benefit all our students all around. The thing on grading practices, I brought this up in a meeting maybe last month, the month before. I repeat myself a lot. But at the Massachusetts school representatives workshops, some of the students were talking about the grading practices, and they were really, Worcester was one, Melrose, who did get the grant also, was another one, but they really wanted to know more about the grading that we do here, because they really think they should be doing it with all schools right now. So I did tell them to hook up with Elney, and she can fill them in. She's pretty honest about things. So I think it's going to be great. And I thank all of you. It's amazing.
It's a lot of hard work. Great leadership.
If no one else has anything to add, I'd like to make
I'd just like to add
Ms. Tack?
double what you said. We sit here and, when you all came in, looked around and, you're the ones who are on the front lines in every way. And, it just makes me so proud to listen to all of you and to know how hard you work. And since my area was always the high school, to watch the collaboration, because I could remember right here one day with a kid running down and somebody screaming at him, "If you don't stop this, you're going to Seacoast." And I thought, how awful that was, that somebody would be there. And so to see that kind of collaboration and the difference in what you have there, and the other folks from the elementary school and through the middle school, you're the base. You're the ones who are there, who take them when they're really little, and maybe through the hardest time, the middle school. And,
That's why they're all separated.
Each one of you has the hardest job in the world, except maybe the superintendents. But you just do, and you do it with ease. I'm sure you have your moments, but you do it with really such devotion. It makes us all really proud, and we know that the whole thing everything would fall apart without you. And each one of you stands on the other one's shoulders, and that's really nice to see too, that there is such camaraderie among you. So I'm blown away, I'll tell you. I thought that was a great presentation. I think you are just fantastic. I would give you, if I weren't talking about if I weren't talking about A pluses anymore, I would give you an A plus. But thanks a lot, just thanks a lot. It was wonderfully said, wonderfully spoken, and with such enthusiasm, and I'm sure you're tired. But thank you so much. Let's give them a round of
Yes,
applause.
thank you.
What can we do to help?
Mrs. Rizzo?
So at this point, do we really want to give them a motion to accept their school improvement plan?
Second.
Motion made, seconded, roll call.
Mrs. Stacy?
Yes.
She's hungry.
Mr. Michael Ferranti?
Yes.
Miss Susan Gravellisi? Mr. John Kingston?
Yes.
Mrs. Aisha Milbury Ellis?
Yes.
Miss Carol Ty?
Yes, enthusiastically.
Mayor Brian Origo?
Yes. Okay. Dr. Kelly?
Thank you. I have just a really quick update. I just wanted to remind the parents at home that this is American Education Week, and we do have open house hours at all of our schools. Some of them have actually already happened today, I believe, but take a look at your school calendar, and if you can, take a few minutes to stop by your child's school and say hello to everybody and take a look around. And then just very briefly, I wanted to mention that we are still progressing with the new high school. We're hoping to have an update next week on the land acquisition at Wonderland. And there is a school building committee meeting this Thursday, open to the public. The link and information is on the city website with all other meetings. We encourage everybody to join. And that's it from me.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Mrs. Rizzo?
I was going to say a motion for a 2-minute break.
Second.
2-minute break.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. You guys are great.
Okay, we're back and moving on. Number 7 are hearings that we have none. Number 8, report of subcommittees. Mr. Ferranti for Ways and Means,
Thank you,
please.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo. On October 31st, there was a Ways and Means Subcommittee meeting to discuss the following items. Number 1, the carry forward from 2022 to 2023. Secondly, the budget wish list and the staff appreciation. The following were in attendance, myself being the chairman, my committee members, Ms. Carol Ty and Mr. John Kingston. Also, other members of the school committee was Mrs. Susan Gravellisi, Mrs. Stacy Bronson Rizzo, and Mayor Brian Arrigo. Also, Superintendent Dr. Diane Kelly and CFO Matt Cruz. The first item we're going to talk about is the carry forward from 2022 to 2023. And the amount of money will be $14,774,714. It is broken down into 3 different categories. Number 1, for classroom teachers, $7,610,505. The reserves going to next year's budget would be $6,280,680. And our school committee allocations is $1,131,529. So moved.
Second.
Need a roll call.
Mrs. Stacy Bronson Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. Michael Ferranti,
Yes.
Miss Susan Gravellisi, Mr. John Kingston,
Yes.
Mrs. Aisha Bilberry Ellis,
Yes.
Miss Carol Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Arrigo.
Okay, secondly, on the budgetary wish list, which was the school committee allocations, breaks down as the following. The 3 positions I'm going to talk about first were already hired. There was a math interventionist at the Wayland School. There was restorative practice teacher at the high school, and education testing liaison. We're also going to do at the City Lab mural, which will cost the city $10,000, but they're going to apply for a grant from the Stars Residency grant up to possibly $5,000. We're also allocating money to the middle school robotics club for $4,800. They're also going to do a drama towards the end of March, the 30th and the 31st for $20,000. We are hiring a kindergarten teacher at the Beachmont School for $60,000. We are also going to hire a bilingual social worker at the Lincoln School for $60,000. Something brand new this year, that the 11 schools that we're going to allocate $200 per member for each school for $147,000. We're going to do a pilot program for full-time paras at 16 positions for $30,480,000. And something that was discussed at the meeting, an additional position for special ed coach for $70,000. So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Stacy Bronson Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. Michael Ferranti,
Yes.
Miss Susan Gravellisi, Mr. John Kingston,
Yes.
Mrs. Aisha Bilberry Ellis,
Yes.
Miss Carol Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Arrigo.
Okay, on the last item, there's a staff appreciation, approximately 1,500 members at $40 a member for $60,000 maximum. So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Stacy Bronson Rizzo,
Just, we have a motion? Did we get a motion in
Yeah.
a second?
Yeah.
So discussion.
On the staff appreciation? Yeah, approximately 1,500 members at a $40 per member, up to $60,000. Okay?
Roll call?
Mr. Stacy Bronson Rizzo,
Present?
Mr. Michael Ferranti,
Yes.
Miss Susan Gravellisi, Mr. John Kingston,
Yes.
Mr. Aisha Bilberry Ellis,
Yes.
Miss Carol Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Arrigo.
I just want to make my final comment. I want to thank my committee members, Ms. Carol Ty and Mr. John Kingston, for all their assistance in this, plus the other members of the committee, including Dr. Diane Kelly, Matt Cruz, and our school committee members. There's a lot of hard work put into this thing. that really made our job relatively easy because they did all the work, and we're just here to just move it along, and hopefully we're going to be in good shape this year. Any other questions?
No, but I'd just like to add, it was I refer to it as a happy problem to have. We had the money, and for once, we could put in place things that so many teachers had asked for, or administrators, that they knew would enhance the quality of education we have, and the whole aura that fills a school. When people are served at that high standard, it just makes such a difference in the atmosphere. And I'm so happy we were able to do that. So, thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have motions. Do you have them in front of you?
In front of me.
Okay. Mr. Ferranti, in the absence of Susan Gravellisi.
A motion to encumber $48,036 for invoice 87970.00.0-19 for Perkman Eastman Architect, DPC, for September 2022 professional services. So moved.
Second?
Roll call?
Mr. Stacy Bronson Rizzo,
Yes?
Mr. Michael Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Susan Gravellisi, Mr. John Kingston,
Yes.
Mrs. Aisha Milbury Ellis,
Yes.
Ms. Carol Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Arrigo.
Motion to approve payment in the amount of $48,036 for invoice number 87970.00.0-19 for Perkman Eastman Architect, DPC, for September 2022 professional services. So moved.
Second?
Roll call?
Mr. Stacy Bronson Rizzo,
Yes?
Mr. Michael Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Susan Gravellisi, Mr. John Kingston,
Yes.
Mr. Aisha Milbury Ellis,
Yes.
Ms. Carol Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Arrigo.
Okay, moving on. Is there any old business? Just a personal point of privilege. I just want to thank Dr. Kelly. She hosted the Massachusetts Superintendent and School Committee Conference last week. She did a marvelous job. And it was nice to see Dr. Garcia and Dr. Markova there, and even our CFO, Matt Cruz, had the opportunity to take in some of the workshops. But thank you, Dr. Kelly. You really represented Revere and the superintendents very well down there. So thank you. Do we have any new business? Seeing none, we have nothing under executive session, and for number 13, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Ms. Connie? And from the school committee and our administration office, we are wishing everyone a happy and very healthy Thanksgiving, and hope to see everyone back on the Monday, nice and healthy. So good night.